Steve Wilks has been let go by the 49ers. Is another example. Like, we played the sound yesterday from Kyle Shanahan, and both of us immediately, and you had been on this for weeks, you thought that Steve Wilks wouldn't be back, and I now look at the breadcrumbs, and you can absolutely see how this wasn't working and didn't feel good. And when Kyle Shanahan kind of sidestepped the question, but hey, is Steve Wilks back? Well, I don't know why all of the coaches wouldn't be back. No. Like, I'm sorry, I missed it. Did you say that Steve Wilks is going to be? Well, I expect him to be back. Is Jordan Poole going to be a part of this team next year? Absolutely. He's under contract. No doubt about it. You could see that someone had a hold of Kyle Shanahan's Adam's apple as he answered this question yesterday. You could see the look on his face in overtime of the Super Bowl when he had to call timeout because he was essentially feeling like, Steve, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is not going to work. So from Minnesota to the zero blitz and the throwing under the bus and the come down from the booth and come to the sideline, all the way through to the Detroit game, to why is the pass rush with all these great players not getting home, to the overtime of the Super Bowl. Here we are, and we'd love to hear from you, 888-957-9570. I know the word scapegoat is going to get thrown around. I unfortunately think there's no good way to do this. Maybe you could have waited a little bit longer so it didn't look so reactionary. I'm not sure about that. I don't think this is a scapegoat situation because I don't think anybody's sitting here going, hey, Steve, you're to blame for the Niners not winning the Super Bowl. I think what they're saying is this was not a good fit. We tried something. It didn't work. It didn't feel good all year. So let's fix it. That's not, to be honest with you, if I'm Kyle Shanahan on this one, I blame myself. I blame myself because I tried something that didn't work. And in retrospect, it was a bad idea.
Well, in retrospect, it's always easier to look at it and say that didn't work out. And, whatever decision you made, had they won the Super Bowl, would he still be there? I don't think so.
Probably not.
Right. And, you can look at his quote today because he spoke yesterday and, was very vague about whether or not that, he'd be back. And he said, yeah, I expect all of our coaches to be back. And that was on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, when the announcement comes, his words were much different today than they were yesterday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, when I say try something that didn't work, I don't just mean Steve. I mean hiring someone from the outside the organization, outside the tree. Steve Wilks is by nature a DB's guy who did not run previously the system the 49ers run. If you really stop and think about it with a rational brain, it was the biggest compliment Kyle Shanahan could give Steve Wilks to say, look, you don't run our system, so this is not a perfect fit, but my God, we think highly of you.
Right.
So we believe you're going to come in here and we together can do this. They were wrong, but this started out as a hell of a compliment to think that you don't run our thing, but, boy, we're big fans of you.
And that's what Kyle said today in his comments. I don't know if you've read them, but he said he's exactly what we wanted as a man, and he's a great football coach, but just where we're going, where we're at with our team from a scheme standpoint and things like that, looking at it throughout the year and the last few days, I felt pretty strongly this was the decision that was best for our organization. Looking at it throughout the year and these last few days,
for sure,
he felt that it was the best decision. So for me, looking at it throughout the year, he already knew.
Oh, brother, he made this decision in 2023.
He made this decision, exactly, in the calendar year.
Absolutely.
I think he made this decision when he had him come down from the booth, and he looked at the scheme and thought, this is not the way I want our defense to run.
Saw P.J. Walker running up and down the field, and he's like, you know what? I think maybe we ought to do something different. Let's do something different. And then the very next week, he's doing zero blitz right before halftime against Kirk Cousins. And now you're 5-2. And then you go out there the very next week, and Joe Burrow has like zero incomplete passes the entire game. And what the most concerning thing was for me all year long, I know the pass rush not getting home was a thing, but all year long, how the hell are you all running the ball like that?
Right.
on the 49ers. How are you? Hargrave, Armstead, Bosa, Warner, and Greenlaw, and you just turned and left, and there's just wide open spaces. Can't have it. Can't have it. Here's Kyle Shanahan today on the Steve Wilks situation.
Sleeping on this for a few nights, and I'm trying to come up with a few tough decisions. But this morning, I relieved Steve Wilks of his duties. Going to end up making a change here, defensive coordinator. Really tough decision because it says nothing about Steve as a man or as a football coach. I mean, he's exactly what we wanted as a man. He is a great football coach, but just where we're going, where we're at with our team, from a scheme standpoint and things like that, looking through it all throughout the year, through these last few days, felt pretty strongly that this was the decision that was best for our organization. Even though it was one I didn't want to make, it was something that once I realized that I think a different direction is what's best for our organization, and then it's something that I have to do. So I let him know this morning, and I know I wasn't able to let you guys know yesterday because I wasn't sure about it yesterday, but I am now.
Yeah, that last sentence I don't buy, but I get that. I mean, you got to say it the way you're supposed to say it.
Of course.
You got to say it the way you're supposed to say it.
So he slept on it one more night.
Right.
And he woke up today and he's like, that's it, Steve.
Like that felt like when Durant joined the Warriors.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, all 5 Warriors are in my living room and they're sleeping over tonight. And but I need to go to bed, and I'll wake up, and I had an egg. I scrambled it, and I went, you know what? I think I want to go to the Warriors.
Or the Dunleavy-Jordan Poole. You mentioned it in the crossover. Yeah, Jordan Poole, we look forward to having him here for a long time, even though you were trying to, in real time deal him.
You can't say it till it's done.
Right.
You can't say it till it's done.
I get that.
But these multi-bajillion-dollar decisions are not made on a whim. I love it. Everybody wakes up. Oh my gosh. Well, that was a great night's sleep. I think I need to fire Steve Wilks.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think that decision was made weeks ago when Lamar Jackson couldn't be stopped, and Joe Mixon couldn't be stopped, and Kirk Cousins couldn't be stopped. And hell, I mean, they won 27-10, but Brian Robinson of the Commanders couldn't be stopped. And then you get to the playoffs, and Aaron Jones is gashing you, and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and all of this. Like, the decision was the decision. You do what you can do. You put some duct tape on it. You see if you can get to the finish line. It's actually amazing that while all of them were feeling this discord now, that's a fair word. I've been using it for weeks and wasn't sure if it was right, but we're there.
Yeah.
Discord, and ended up in overtime of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible, actually. They went to overtime of the Super Bowl feeling like crap about the way the defense was performing the whole year. Nick Bosa said it. He's good on the back end, but obviously this year was a struggle.
Yeah.
And you ended up in overtime of the Super Bowl.
Exactly. And your defense in that moment was unable to get the stop that it needed. And, I think Steiny pointed this out earlier in the week where Kansas City scored in its final 4 possessions. I know the first of those 4 was a one-play drive off a muff punt, but the defense did break down late in that game, and you could see and you could sense that the defensive players on that team felt a little disconnected to the scheme this year as opposed to last year. Yeah,
the whole thing is I look back on it, and I think more about the beginning of the season than the end. I know that this will feel like, overtime of the Super Bowl, and we'll remember other things. We'll remember the 3-game losing streak and the first half against Detroit and all of those things. I go back to the offseason, and a mistake was made. This was an error in judgment. And so the only thing I would say to Kyle Shanahan, and I don't think I need to say it because I think that they are singularly focused on this, go back to the tree. Go back to the tree. Think about this. DeMeco Ryans walked in as the defensive coordinator with very little experience. Very little experience as a leader on the sideline. 3 years later, this guy's getting Coach of the Year votes. Why? Because he was part of the system. My God, I don't want a system quarterback, but I sure want a system defensive coordinator. Stick with the tree. Do not get wooed by somebody out there who has a resume and think that you can teach him on the fly. Why would you do that? You're in the ultimate now window.
Right.
And you went with an experiment.
You went with a leader, and Steve Wilks was that. He was a leader of men. He's a veteran coach, and that's what you went with, as opposed to elevating Johnny Holland or Chris Kasarik, guys who I think have a good chance at getting that job. To your point about the system, these are coaches who've been in the system now before Steve Wilks was there, so maybe you just elevate one of those guys.
Maybe. But I think that you're, and we'll play this for you in a little bit. Shanahan was asked about within the organization or outside of the organization. And I want to make sure everyone understands when I say tree, I'm not saying it's got to be in-house. It's got to be in system. And so there are plenty of people around the league who are familiar with this system, have coached with these coaches or whatever. It's a fraternity, right? And it's all interwoven. And so I think it is of the utmost importance that the 49ers hire from that group. So is it somebody who is already on the Niners sideline, although they lost a bunch of coaches today, or is it a Brandon Staley, who, as much as he's been a punchline for 2 years, I got zero problem with him as a coordinator. None. So that's what I think they got to do.